Welcome to Managing a Windows 2012 Server Environment. I'm your instructor, Robert McMillen, and we're in part 2, lab 2, and we're going to talk about some new topics. Our study materials used is the book Inside Out Windows Server 2012 by William R. Stanek, and we're going to discuss managing Windows Server 2012 systems. And those categories include MMC, Microsoft Management Console, roles and features, managing the registry, and performance monitor. The Microsoft Management Console, or MMC, uses snap-ins to add different items to manage. You can manage both the local server itself or other remote systems, and you can save custom views for future use. So the easiest way to show this is just to demonstrate it by bringing up the MMC, and you can get to the MMC just by typing MMC from a command prompt if you like. And from here we can see that the MMC is blank. So what we need to do is we need to add in some things that we can manage, such as Active Directory domains and trusts, sites and services, users and computers, just like we did before when we launched it from the administrative tools. And there's lots of other things, certificates, computer management, device manager, pretty much anything that you can see through any other graphical user interface, plus some new ones, you can get to through the MMC. The nice thing about the MMC is you can add in for multiple different things all at once and then save it, where you can look at it again in the future. And some of these items that you saw me add, you can also add for different servers. So if we want, we can choose a different server to add in instead of just the local one. So click OK, and now we can see all different kinds of things. We'll go ahead and click on shared folders. There's our different shared folders that we have in there, and from here we can manage those shared folders. So if you want to create a custom management console, this is the way to do it. Things that you use all the time, you don't want to have to keep locating every time you want to manage something. You can do it right here. Now when you're done adding your snap-ins, you can choose File, Save As, and you can save your particular custom MMC to anything you want, and then you can open it back up again. We have one that we had done earlier. I can double click on that, and you can see that it just opens up the ones that we had added previously. So it's a great time saver, great way to manage your server. Let's talk about roles and features. That's a big part of the server. After you decide what roles the server is going to be providing, you need to add those roles and features in order to make them work. So if you add a role, it adds domain functionality. So anytime you add a role, it basically affects every computer and user that's attached to that domain. When you add a feature, it just adds server functionality. So you'll be adding something that will make the server do more things, but it doesn't necessarily affect everyone else. You can also add role services. Role services are subsets of roles. So when you add a role, it has a whole bunch of sub-roles called role services. If you decide you want to add additional role services later on, you certainly can. And I'll show you an example of that. Roles and features can be added or removed as needed. You don't have to keep the roles or features you've installed. You can remove them at any time if you decide you don't need them anymore. So let's go into the Server Manager and take a look at these roles and features and how to add them. So let's go ahead and click on Add Roles and Features. Now we've got a couple different options to start with: role-based or feature-based installation, also remote desktop services installation. So if you're using this server as a remote desktop server in an application server mode, then you can use this to add additional features. Other than that, all these can be added through the role-based installation. Next, it shows our server, which we'll just go ahead and click Next. And from here, we can add roles. So if we decide we want to add a role, we can just go ahead and check that box. I'll just go ahead and add a fax server. and it pops up a new box that says, hey, there's some features that are required in order to make this role work. Do you want to go ahead and add those? Well, yeah, we'll just go ahead and add those. And from here, we can choose Next. Now, these are the features. These are the ones that just affect the server itself and not necessarily everyone in the domain, such as failover clustering, background intelligence transfer service, LPR port monitor. These all just affect the server itself, not necessarily everyone else. We don't need to add any new features except those that were added with the fax server, so we'll go ahead and choose Next. And Next again. And it's going to show us a little summary of the changes we're about to make. We can also check the box that says restart the server automatically if required. You don't want to check that box if you have people connected to it. Go ahead and click Install. And based on what it is you're installing, you may see some additional pop-up boxes. We're not seeing them this time, but additional boxes that may ask some more questions about how you want to set it up, such as if we were installing a DHCP server, it might ask us what the scope is that we would like to add for that server. So once this is done, it'll say that it's finished. Now you don't have to wait for it to finish. You can just go ahead and click Close, and it will continue to operate. So we showed adding the roles, adding the features, the role services, which are subsets of those, and roles and features can be removed or added anytime you would like. Managing the registry. There are 5 different types of keys. Those keys are made up of 3 logical and 2 physical. The logical keys are basically just subsets of the physical keys, although they are shown as though they are separate keys from the physical. But basically, anytime you make a change to the physical keys, it also affects the logical keys. Windows uses the registry to load Windows, so if it cannot find the registry or the registry is corrupt, Windows will not load. So the registry is very important to making the server boot up and run properly. Keys, the keys themselves, can be exported or imported. So if you're about to make a change to your registry, you may want to export that key the way it looks before you make the change. Then after you make the change, if you realize things aren't working right, you can import it back in to fix it. Editing the registry can be dangerous. You can make the server inoperable if you make a big mistake. Fortunately, Microsoft does allow the backup of a registry, which happens automatically, and you can restore that backup registry from a command line when you choose to repair your computer. So let's take a look at the registry. We'll just minimize our server manager, and you can get to the registry just by typing regedit from a command line, as you see we did here. So here are our 5 keys. We have the H key, which stands for Hive key. Classes root, user, machine, users, compared to current users, and current config. So the 2 physical keys are the local machine and users. Those are the ones that you'll make the majority of your edits anytime a program is required to make a change. So if we expand the local machine, we can see these sub keys, and from here we can really drill down to wherever it is we want to go. We'll go ahead and click System, and you can see under System we have the current control set. The current control set is the one you'll typically be editing. And from here we see control, we see profiles, we see policies, we see services, and from here we can see various different types. You have the reg.sz, reg.dword. These are some of the multi-SC. If you double click on those, you can see they have different types of data in them. The simple ones, the reg.d words, just show hexadecimal or decimal information. And the reg expand SC is going to show a path to a file. The multi-SC is going to allow you to put in multiple values for the data in order to affect the program. So lots of different sub information inside this. Now if you want to export a key, it's very simple. Just right click, choose export, and we'll just call this test reg key, and we'll put it right on the desktop. So now if I make a change to any one of these, I can undo that change if things don't go right by just going back in and double clicking and saying to go ahead and re-import that information. Then it'll make it right back the way it was. You can export the entire registry, or you can just export an individual key or subkey. If you right click and choose edit, then you'll see that key information in a text file, which you can make changes to if you need to. All right, now we're going to talk about Performance Monitor. It's used to monitor server performance. You can also use it to create a baseline and send alerts as needed. So you'd create a baseline basically to see how much the server has changed from when you installed Windows or when you installed an application to a year or two later, and you can then check out whether or not the server is running at the same speed or the performance has been degraded. The alerts you can have is if you decide to trigger an alert, such as the processor gets above 80% or you're running out of hard drive or RAM, then you can have an alert sent to you, and that alert will say that you need to make a change because that alert has been triggered. So let's go ahead and take a look at Performance Monitor. You can just type perfmon or do a search for it in the Start menu. And this is the box that comes up. So the first thing we want to look at here is where it says Performance Monitor itself, and you can see that Performance Monitor has one particular monitor already happening, which is the processor time. So how much percent of the processor is being used at this time. If you right click and go to Task Manager and you click under Performance, you see the exact same thing. So under CPU, this will mirror exactly what's happening here. So that's the same monitor you're looking at. Now if you'd like, you can add additional monitors. Click the plus and you can add additional monitors of any kind of monitor you would like, and you can double click on it and you can see some sub monitors, and some of them, others just have the one all by themselves. And then when you find the one you want, you can click add and then click OK, and now that monitor shows up as well with the other one. If there's no traffic on that particular monitor, you won't see anything. Now if you have a lot of different monitors, you may want to consider a couple of things. One is going to the properties and changing the color, so the color of the various different ones can be separate. They shouldn't all be red. You can also, on the one that you have highlighted, you can also click on the highlight button, and that turns that a dark black to make it easier to see that particular monitor that's going on. So you can see there's nothing going on with our second monitor, so it's all the way at the bottom. Over here we have data collector sets. There are custom data collector sets, or there are data collector sets that are predefined, such as the system ones. Now the data collector set that we want to use, such as the Performance Monitor one, will basically take all the information that has to do with that particular monitor, and then it will collect that information for you to review at a later time. You can also set your alerts here, and we'll go ahead and start this particular one here. So now it is collecting information for us. We can right click and choose stop when we're done, or you can click the stop button at the top, and then you can view the report on that information that it shows here. We can also choose a user-defined data collector set, where we go in and we say whatever it is that we'd like to do, and we can give it all kinds of information for collecting custom information. So there's your Performance Monitor, the collection set, and then now we have the reports. So once you collect your data, you want to see what the results are. So you click on your collector set information, and then over here, if you ran one of these, you'll see a report on what it was that it collected. And from there you can decide what you would like to do, save that information for baseline or other information in the future. So in summary, we discussed the MMC, roles and features, managing the registry, Performance Monitor. Next up is part 3, Lab 1, where we will discuss managing Windows Server 2012 storage and file systems.